All right, folks, sorry about that. There was a cut in the network. We'll continue. We'll continue. Let me share my slide. All right, we want to continue looking at our reference frames and how the reference frames, uh, how we relate to the reference frames when it's changing in motion. So we see that we deal with all this kind of changing reference frame situation by introducing two reference frames, which here I'm going to call A and B. If you look at this diagram on the top right, you will see A and B. A having its own coordinates and B having its own coordinates. It A is the one lower a bit, then B is the one a bit higher. One of them say A is at rest relative to the earth, and the other one is at rest relative to something else, which means really moving along with that something else. That means A is at rest relative to the earth, while B is actually moving, but is at rest relative to something else. So probably A is on the earth itself, while B is in a car that is moving. So understand it that way, which means really, I need to cancel all of this, all right? Which means, okay, for instance, a reference frame at rest relative to the river would be a frame that is moving along with the river water, like a piece of driftwood that you could measure your progress relative to. So assuming in that last example I gave, you want to swim across, let's use the word swim across, not even rowing, you want to swim across, but you study the current of the waters and you see that there is a wood that is on the water that is moving. Now, if you're a good swimmer, you should know the amount of strokes of swimming you would do to be able to move from a point A to a point B, looking at the wood that is also drifting on the waters. So depending on the velocity of the water current that is moving, you will now know how to swim or how fast to swim to be able to get to the other side. So simply that is what reference frames is talking about. So in the reference frame A, the point P, if you look at the diagram, the point P has position coordinates X, AP, Y, AP. Likewise, in the reference frame of B is the same thing. Its coordinates are X, PB, Y, PB. As you can see, the notation choosing is such that every coordinate in A will have an A as a first subscript, while the second subscript indicates the object to which it refers, and similarly for coordinates in B. So the coordinates XAB and YAB are special. They are the coordinates in the reference frame A of the origin of the reference frame B. This is enough to fully locate the frame in frame B in A. So frame B is in A because A is the object that is on the earth, as long as the frames are not rotated relative to each other. The thin colored lines I have drawn, the thin colored lines, the blue ones I have drawn along the axis in the figure, are intended to make it clear that the following equation holds. This is the equation A. XAB is equal to SAP is equal to XAB plus XPB. Then XAB, SAP is the same thing as XAB plus XPB. All right. We're going to look more at this reference frames equation much more on a later date, but we shall understand that reference frames are the reference with which we look at all objects as they move. Let me introduce measurement errors for today. Measurement errors, also called observational error, is the difference between a measured quantity and its true value, or the difference between the observed value of a variable and the true but unobserved value of that variable. All right, we're going to stop here today. We're going to stop here today. We're going to stop here today, and I'm going to give you some assignments that you will look at. Let me look at the assignments that we're going to look at. All right, we're going to take that assignment next week. We're going to take that assignment next week. But what we have seen that we have done today is to indicate to us that we are able to look at the reference frames, Newton's law, and engineering dynamics. And I'm going to ask you to do something. Read on error measurements of errors. And next week when we come, I'm going to ask 1 or 2 questions, and you will tell me how you have read of it. Thank you very much. And if you have any question, just type it on the chat box or in the WhatsApp group. Send me a WhatsApp group message and I will be able to answer.